Where are you watching this from? Type your country in the comments. We're about to start a story that'll leave you speechless. And if you believe brilliance can come from the quietest voices, stick around. They called it Camp Cypher. Nestled high in the Colorado Rockies, just past a valley where the Wi-Fi barely reached and the stars still lit the night like someone had spilled glitter across velvet, was a facility unlike any other. No signs. No flashy banners. Just a discreet gate and a fingerprint scanner. Inside that gate was where the world's most brilliant, overlooked minds were meant to thrive. Not the trust fund genius types. Not the kids with $8,000 laptops and parents who called in favors to get their kids into MIT at 13. No. This camp was for a different kind of brilliance. The kind that comes from struggle. The kind born in library corners, cracked phone screens, and quiet evenings where coding became escape. The kind that no one saw coming. It was the first of its kind. Built from the ground up by tech billionaire Elias Vance, the very man whose name once echoed through Silicon Valley as loudly as it did through headlines filled with tragedy. A visionary. A recluse. A man people called genius and madman in the same breath. But now, he was someone else entirely. He walked with a quiet kind of urgency, like he was always chasing a ghost. And when he stood at the podium that morning, looking out over the 100 kids who had earned a golden envelope and a ticket to Camp Cypher, there was something behind his eyes. Something more than excitement. Regret. Maybe hope. Maybe both. Elias didn't waste time with long speeches. He stood, hands behind his back, salt and pepper hair catching the breeze, and said simply, "You were chosen because the world hasn't heard your voice yet. That changes today." No fanfare. No applause. Just a silence that fell over the mountain like fog. And in that silence, one girl sat completely still. Third row from the back. Hoodie up. Fingers twitching under the table like she was debugging something invisible. Her name was Lena. And no one knew it yet, but she was the reason everything was about to change. Let's back up. Lena wasn't supposed to be there. Her application came late. The system flagged it as incomplete. No father listed. Mother marked as deceased. No school records after age 9. But attached to her file was a single text file labeled only with a timestamp. Inside was a compressed block of code. At first, the selection committee ignored it, probably a joke. But one junior programmer got curious, ran the code in a sandbox, and nearly dropped her coffee. It wasn't just clean. It was impossible. An original encryption format. Untraceable source. Compact, elegant, and encrypted again. This wasn't something pulled off GitHub. This was foundational. Something written from scratch, with layers. The file was traced back. It was submitted from a public library in Albuquerque, New Mexico. No identifying login. No metadata left behind. And yet somehow, when Elias saw the logs, he stopped in the middle of his morning jog. He stared at the strings of code. His hands started shaking. He hadn't seen code like that in years. Since before the fire. Since before the funeral. Since before he lost his sister. That's when he made the call. Overrode the selection panel. Lena was in. No questions asked. Day 1 at Camp Cypher was always the same. Each camper received a blank tablet, a keycard, and a basic challenge encrypted in 5 stages. The goal wasn't to solve it fast, it was to see how you thought. Some kids skipped stages to brute force answers. Some collaborated and backtracked. Some wrote notes in the margins like they were rewriting the challenge itself. But Lena? She didn't move. For hours. She just stared at the screen. No blinking. No questions. Just Silence. That night, most kids were in the cafeteria buzzing about their roommates or their challenge progress. Friendships were already forming. Rivalries too. You could feel the energy bouncing off the concrete walls. But Lena didn't show up for dinner. She was still in the lab. Still staring. At 9:47 p.m., the server logs lit up. One of the puzzles, the one meant to be uncrackable without assistance, flashed green. Solved. The name on the user ID? Lena A. No one else had even passed stage 2. She had completed all 5. In under 10 minutes. The code she submitted wasn't just efficient, it was poetic. Recursive loops that adapted midstream. Self-cleaning functions. And a final encryption key. That wasn't just random. It was a signature. Elias recognized it instantly. Because he had written it himself. Well, not just him. He and his sister had written it together. Elias didn't sleep that night. He stayed in the lab long after the campers went to bed. He pulled up every version of that old signature key, trying to convince himself it was a coincidence. A trick. A fluke. But then came the final blow. At the bottom of Lena's code, buried 5 layers deep, was a phrase. To the boy who always made the firewalls smile. His childhood nickname. A secret his sister used to tease him with when they'd code side by side in their shared basement growing up. He hadn't heard that phrase in 20 years. And now, it was echoing back at him. From a girl who wasn't supposed to exist. The next morning, Elias didn't lead the session. He didn't even show up. But Lena did. She sat in the front row this time. Still silent. Still watching. And for the first time, she smiled. Just once. And just enough for the camera in the corner of the lab to catch it. Speech bubble emoji. Let's pause here. If this story has you hooked already, comment cipher below so we know you're with us. What do you think Lena's hiding? Is it just genius, or something deeper? Over the next few days, whispers started spreading through camp. The other kids noticed Lena wasn't like the rest. Not just smart, beyond smart. But it wasn't just the way she coded. It was the way she never asked questions, but always knew the answers. The way she walked the halls like she'd been there before. And the way she flinched every time someone mentioned family. By day 4, she had reprogrammed her entire tablet to use a new interface no one had seen before. By day 5, she beat the camp's AI simulation in chess in 4 moves. And on day 6, Elias finally walked into the room and looked her in the eyes. He didn't say hello. She didn't either. He just said, "Where did you learn that encryption?" And Lena said, barely above a whisper, "My mom taught me. Before she died." The room went quiet. Elias stepped back. Not because of her answer, but because of the way she said it. Like it wasn't true. Like it was something she'd been told to say. Like the truth was scarier than the lie. He didn't ask more questions. Not yet. But his hands were shaking again. Because in Lena's voice, he heard something he hadn't heard in a decade. His sister. And in that moment, the man who had built a fortress of firewalls, satellites, and algorithms to protect the world, suddenly realized she might have missed the one secret that mattered most. This is only the beginning. Because what Lena's about to unlock, it doesn't just change her life. It changes everything Elias thought he knew about family, betrayal, and the kind of legacy no firewall can keep hidden. To be continued in Section 2, the puzzle no one was meant to solve. Don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales TV so you don't miss what happens next. This story is about to go deeper than code, and straight into the heart. And remember to comment where you're watching from. We're reading every single one. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, do you think Lena knows exactly who Elias is? Or is she hiding something even deeper? Let's see your theories. They said the puzzle was just a challenge. A simple mental warm-up for the first week of Camp Cypher. But that was a lie. The puzzle was never about skill. It was a test. A trap. A silent monument built by a man haunted by the past, waiting to see if anyone would trip the alarm. Because the moment someone solved it, the moment someone proved they understood it, was the moment Elias Vance would know that the past he tried to bury had finally clawed its way back to him. And now? The puzzle had been solved. by a girl who wasn't supposed to know it existed. The room where it happened wasn't anything special. It was called the vault. A concrete lab tucked behind 2 security doors and a retina scanner. Kids called it the crypt because it was cold, silent, and lit with screens that flickered like broken stars. Inside was a single monitor. Black. Blank. Until you scanned your card. Then the puzzle would appear. No graphics. No flashy colors. Just white code on black. An encryption format older than most of the kids in the room. Elias had written it himself, years ago, before his fame, before the IPO, before the accident. It was a cipher his sister had once mocked him for. "You overcomplicate everything, Eli," she used to say, smirking with her chipped coffee mug and bare feet on the desk. "You're writing mazes for ghosts." He used to laugh. Now? He couldn't even look at the code without flinching. It was meant to be symbolic. A little legacy challenge, as the camp called it. Something unsolvable, so kids could fail, reflect, and grow. That was the PR spin, anyway. But Elias had buried something deeper inside the puzzle. Something he never told the staff, the board, or even the AI team who helped develop it. Because at the center of the encryption, past the meaningless layers, past the dead-end branches and recursive tricks, was a message. A signature. A whisper to the only person who ever knew how he thought. "If you find this, you know where to look." He never expected anyone to get there. No one should have. But then came Lena. The night she cracked it, the server room lit up like a war room. The puzzle had been active for 7 years. Hundreds of campers had tried. Some had gotten close, maybe 3 stages deep. Most didn't even get that far. But Lena? She triggered the final decryption sequence. In 9 minutes and 40 seconds. And she didn't just solve it. She rewrote part of it. Elias was still reviewing the logs when his assistant rushed in. "Sir," she said breathlessly. "You should see this." At first, he thought it was a prank. The code was too clean. Too familiar. But then he saw the part that made his blood run cold. A single variable, renamed manually. Celia was right. His sister's name. Her mantra. Her rebellion. She used to say it after every argument, every breakthrough, every mistake he refused to admit. Celia was right. She joked about having it engraved on his tombstone. And now it was sitting in his code. Inside the vault. Updated by a girl who should have had no idea who Celia even was. That's when Elias did something he hadn't done in a long time. He froze. He pulled up the security feed. There she was. Hood still up. Eyes locked on the screen. No notes. No calculator. No second guesses. Just her fingers, moving like they weren't typing, but remembering. Like her hands had done this before. She finished the puzzle. She paused. And then, she added something. Another line. It wasn't code. It was a sentence. Plain text. But it cut deeper than anything Elias had ever read. The ghost's maze was never that hard. You just had to stop being afraid of the dark. That was it. Then she hit enter. And walked out of the vault like it meant nothing. But to Elias, it meant everything. Back in his office, he stared at her profile again. Lena A. 12 years old. Mother, deceased. No extended family on record. And yet, every instinct in him screamed, she's not a stranger. She was connected. To Celia. To the past. To him. So, he started digging. Deeper than before. He accessed old archives. College forums. Chat logs from years ago that he'd locked in his personal servers. Conversations with Celia from the last few months before she vanished. There was one that haunted him. A message she'd left in the dead of night. "If anything happens to me, I'll make sure you find her. But you have to look, Eli. You have to stop pretending the darkness isn't real." He had dismissed it back then. Celia had always been paranoid, he told himself. Conspiracy obsessed. Always thinking someone was after her, even after their exit from their family's investment group. But what if she was right? What if the they she feared were real? And what if Lena was the trail? The next morning, Elias showed up at the camp breakfast. He never did that. He was a shadow figure, a legend the kids whispered about. But today, he sat at the head table, eyes scanning the room. And then he saw her. Lena. Sitting alone. Doodling on her napkin in binary. He approached. "May I sit?" he asked. She didn't look up. "You're Elias," she said. Not a question. Just a fact. And that was the moment Elias Vance knew, she knew exactly who he was. He asked about the puzzle. She shrugged. "It wasn't that hard," she said, eyes still on the napkin. "It was built like something someone never finished." That sentence hit like a punch. Because she was right. Elias had never finished the code. Celia had stopped him. She said it was too dangerous. That if someone truly solved it, it would trace back to everything they'd once tried to escape. She had made him promise never to run it again. And now it had been solved. Not by a hacker. Not by a prodigy from MIT. By a 12-year-old girl from nowhere. With his sister's eyes. The moment passed in silence. Elias stood. He wanted to ask more. So much more. But he couldn't. Not yet. Because something inside him whispered, "She's not ready." Or maybe, "You're not." That night, Elias returned to the vault. He reopened the decrypted version of the puzzle. And found something he didn't see before. Buried in the raw logs was a second message. Encrypted in a method only Celia had ever used. It wasn't signed by Lena. It was signed by Celia. "If you found this, it means she found you first. Don't tell her yet. She doesn't know everything. But if she's solved it, then it means we don't have much time. They're watching." Again. See? Elias closed the file. His hands were shaking again. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from something else. Rage. Determination. And something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Because if Celia was still out there, if she had sent Lena, then that meant the past wasn't done with them. And neither was the truth. Still watching? Comment Maze Master if you made it to the end of this part. Do you think Celia is alive, or is someone else using her code? Let's hear your theories. And if you're as hooked as we are, don't scroll without subscribing. The next part is where the past stops whispering, and starts kicking down doors. Before we begin, answer this in the comments. Have you ever met someone who reminded you of someone you lost? Maybe it was their eyes. Their voice. Something you couldn't explain. Let's talk about it. There's something strange about memory. We like to think it's linear, organized, like folders in a computer. Dates, events, names. But memory doesn't work like that. It's messy. It's triggered by shadows, by smells, by a laugh you haven't heard in years. And sometimes, by eyes. Eyes that don't belong to the person you lost, but hold the exact same question as theirs once did. And that's exactly what Elias Vance saw when he looked at Lena. Not just brilliance. Not just coding talent. He saw his sister. And it terrified him. He tried to rationalize it at first. Plenty of people have similar features. Coincidences happen. Maybe Lena reminded him of Celia because he wanted to see her again. Maybe grief had warped the edges of his reality. But every time Lena looked up, just for a second, it was like Celia was blinking through her. Not physically, but emotionally. The same guarded gaze. The same way she tilted her head when she was curious but pretending not to be. The same exact look Celia gave him the night before she disappeared. Half warning. Half goodbye. Back then, Elias hadn't understood it. He thought it was just one more argument. One more clash between a brother who loved building systems, and a sister who only wanted to break them. But now? Now he saw it for what it really was. A plea. For 3 nights straight, Elias couldn't sleep. He watched the camera feeds from the lab, from the cafeteria, from the courtyard. Not obsessively, but like a man watching for a signal in the static. Lena never did anything suspicious. She wasn't sneaking into servers or copying files. She was being a kid. But even that felt surreal. Because Celia never got to be just a kid. And it looked like Lena hadn't either. On the fourth day, Elias did something he never did. He asked to sit with her. She didn't look surprised. Just moved her tray slightly, as if she expected it. He sat. For a minute, they didn't speak. The hum of the dining hall buzzed around them, keyboards clicking, laughter bouncing off the steel walls. Then Lena asked, quietly, "Did you like building things when you were my age?" Elias blinked. No one had ever asked him that. Not even interviewers. He nodded. "I used to build mazes." She raised one eyebrow. "Digital?" "Both. I made one in my backyard. Used mirrors and plywood." "Did anyone get through it?" He smiled faintly. "My sister did. She didn't walk through it, she climbed over the fence. Said the best way through was around." Lena nodded, like she already knew the answer. There was a pause. And then she said, "My mom used to say that too. About fences." Elias froze. He didn't breathe. Did she say used to, because her mother was really gone? Or was it something else? He wanted to ask. So badly. But then she looked at him, those eyes, and he couldn't do it. Because something told him that she didn't know the truth yet either. After that lunch, he sent a request to his security team. "Dig into Lena," he typed. "Privately. Quietly. Focus on the mother. Cross-reference anything with the name Celia Vance, or aliases, or pre-IPO records." It wasn't just paranoia anymore. It was instinct. And when the results came in 2 days later, they changed everything. Lena's file, it turned out, had gaps. Years-long gaps. She'd been in foster care, briefly, but records were vague. One address in Utah. Another in Arizona. Then gone. No school enrollment between ages 6 and 9. No medical records between 9 and 11. But tucked inside a digital folder, buried in an outdated social services database in New Mexico, was a note. A single line. Homeschooled. Parent in protective isolation. Parent. Not guardian. Not foster. Parent. That's when Elias knew. Celia hadn't died. She had disappeared. And she'd taken her daughter with her. For a while, Elias just sat with the weight of that. He remembered the funeral, the closed casket, the way the coroner's report had never quite made sense, the fire in the lab, the rapid settlement. It had all happened so fast. Too fast. And maybe that was the point. Maybe it was never meant to be investigated. Maybe she had faked it all to protect Lena. But from what? The Vance family was no stranger to secrets. Their fortune hadn't just come from clever code and big ideas. Their parents, Elias and Celia's, had been tied to one of the most powerful, dangerous private investment groups in the world. A quiet empire. One that didn't like questions. Celia had always been the rebel. The hacker. The whistleblower in waiting. Elias had played along. Until he couldn't anymore. And when she vanished, he had told himself it was over. Now, he wasn't so sure. That night, Elias brought out an old hard drive. One he hadn't touched in over a decade. Inside were the final messages between him and Celia, just days before the explosion that killed her. He read them slowly. Every line. Every plea. Every warning. And then, one video message. Unopened. Dated one day before her death. He hesitated. Then clicked play. Celia's face appeared. Younger than he remembered. Tired. But sharp. Alive. If you're watching this, Eli, I hope you finally got out. I hope you're not just making money. I hope you remembered why we started coding in the first place. She looked off screen, then back. There's a reason I disappeared. A reason I had to. They knew I was getting close. But I couldn't let them find her. Not Lena. I had to teach her differently. Quietly. I told her not to ask questions about family. I told her to run if anyone mentioned her name. But if you're seeing this, it means she's found you. Or maybe, you found her. Her voice cracked. She's everything I wasn't brave enough to be. Don't let her become a tool. Not for you. Not for anyone. She's not a key. She's a person. And then the screen went black. Elias didn't sleep after that. He walked the campgrounds. Watched the stars. Thought about every mistake he'd ever made. And wondered if he was already too late. The next morning, he found Lena sitting by the fire pit, alone. The others were doing a scavenger hunt. She had opted out. Elias sat beside her. No questions this time. Just presence. For a while, neither of them said a word. Then Lena asked, "Did you ever lose someone and not believe they were really gone?" He nodded slowly. "I still don't." She looked at him. Those eyes. Those damn eyes. "Me neither," she whispered. "I think she's still out there. Somewhere. I don't know how I know. I just do." He didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat was too tight. His mind, too full of ghosts. Still with us? Drop a emoji if you felt something while listening to this part. Do you think Lena knows her mother's alive? Or is she starting to remember on her own? Let's start with this. Have you ever carried the guilt of not listening to someone when they needed you most? Someone you didn't realize was saying goodbye? If you have, you're not alone. Tell us in the comments. You don't realize the weight of a shadow until you stand directly beneath it. That was what Elias Vance was learning, again. He had spent over a decade trying to outrun his sister's shadow. Her brilliance. Her defiance. Her decision to vanish. Her absence had followed him through every headline, every stock spike, every speech where people praised his genius, not knowing half of it had come from her. And now? Her daughter was sitting in his camp, wearing the same expression Celia wore the day she told him she was leaving. The truth had a way of circling back. Elias used to believe time healed things. But it didn't. It buried them. And now the truth was clawing its way out of the grave, inch by inch, wearing the face of a 12-year-old girl with impossible eyes. The message Celia left, buried in that old hard drive, played over and over in Elias's mind. Don't let her become a tool. He'd built his empire on tools, on algorithms, on systems that could predict, protect, optimize. But people? People were messy. And family? Even messier. He had told himself for years that Celia's death was a tragedy he couldn't control. That her paranoia had gone too far. That she'd isolated herself. But maybe she'd just seen the truth before anyone else had. And maybe he hadn't listened. The next morning, Elias pulled out an old journal. It was wrapped in a tattered canvas cover and smelled like dust and regret. Celia's handwriting filled every page. Scribbles. Notes. Diagrams. Codes. Some of the entries he remembered, ideas they'd shared in college. But others were darker. Notes about encrypted transactions. Offshore companies. Names. Names tied to their family. Names that hadn't appeared in public documents for decades. Names with blood behind them. Their parents had always been discreet, ruthless, but quiet. Elias and Celia grew up in privilege, yes, but also in silence. The kind of silence that made your skin crawl when you asked too many questions. Their family name had funded black budgets, bought senators, erased files. And when Celia started asking why, things changed. She broke away. Tried to expose something. But before she could, the lab burned. And she was gone. Only now, Elias wasn't so sure she had failed. What if faking her death wasn't surrender? What if it was strategy? And Lena, was the legacy she left behind? Elias spent hours digging through the journal, piecing together dates and patterns. The more he read, the more he realized something horrifying. Celia had predicted what was happening now. She knew that someday, Lena might find Elias. And she had left behind clues, not just to her location, but to the truth about their family. That night, Elias sat down with Lena again. This time in the camp library, quiet, after hours. She was curled up on one of the couches, pretending to read, but he could tell she was coding something in her head. Her fingers twitched subtly. Her eyes flickered between lines of imagined syntax. He sat beside her, cleared his throat, then gently asked, "Do you ever think about where you came from?" She didn't look at him. "Sometimes," she said. "And your mom?" A long pause. She was careful, kind, but scared a lot. Of what? Another pause. This time longer. Of being found. Elias looked down at the journal in his lap. He flipped it open. Held out a page. On it was a sketch, a crude flowchart. One he remembered arguing with Celia about years ago. She'd claimed someone in their parents' network had gone rogue, that certain accounts tied to shell companies were being used to fund surveillance and coercion. She wanted to go public. He told her she was being paranoid. But the flowchart was now hauntingly accurate. Lena glanced at it, then back at him. She used to draw that on napkins. His heart stopped. She said it was like chasing a monster with 1,000 names. And just like that, everything broke open. The line between past and present dissolved. And the truth stood naked in the space between them. Lena didn't ask who Elias really was. Not yet. But she knew. He could see it now. And she was waiting. Waiting for him to admit it. Later that night, Elias opened a secure terminal in the camp's restricted network. Only he had access to it. He uploaded 3 files. A scan of Celia's journal. The decrypted portion of Lena's vault puzzle. And the original Vance family server logs from the month before Celia disappeared. He ran a pattern analysis. It took 3 minutes. When the results came back, he stared at the screen in silence. Every trail, every hidden thread, pointed to the same thing. Celia hadn't just disappeared to protect Lena. She had vanished because she uncovered something that could destroy them all. A group. Small. Private. Buried deep in the layers of the Vance legacy. They weren't just investors. They were architects of control. And they had been watching Celia since the day she tried to break free. One name appeared in the logs repeatedly: Gideon Albright. A man Elias had once seen at a gala when he was 13. His father used to whisper Gideon's name like a spell, equal parts fear and awe. He hadn't seen it again since. Now it was all over the logs. Hidden in redirect chains, anonymous payments, private DNS registries. All tied to surveillance software. All aimed at tracking Lena. Elias closed the laptop. And for the first time since building Camp Cypher, he was afraid. The next day, a drone was spotted near the outer edge of the camp. No markings. No ID. By the time staff reached the tree line, it was gone. But a lens cap had fallen into the grass. Engraved on it was a serial number. Elias traced it that night. One of Gideon's companies. He didn't tell Lena. Not yet. But he made 2 calls. One to his head of security. Double patrols. Lock down the network. No one in or out without my clearance. The second. To an encrypted number he hadn't dialed in 10 years. It rang once. Then clicked. Silence. Then a voice. Soft. Familiar. Older. You found her. Elias couldn't breathe. Celia? She didn't answer directly. Just said, if they've tracked her there, you have to move. Now. He stood up. Wait, where are you? Are you safe? Another pause. That's not the question you should be asking. He whispered, then what is? Are you ready to stop running and finally fight back? Click. The line went dead. Speech bubble emoji, if that call gave you chills, comment she's alive right now. The pieces are starting to fit. But the danger? It's just beginning. Quick question before we begin. Do you think people are born into darkness, or pulled into it by blood and circumstance? Let us know in the comments. Because this story? It's about to blur that line completely. Blood and code. That's what it always came down to for Elias Vance. Not money. Not fame. Not even power. Blood and code. The former was inherited. The latter? Built. But as he stood in the shadows of Camp Cypher's main lab, watching the server pulses flicker across Lena's reflection, Elias was starting to realize something. He'd underestimated both. She was coding again. Alone. Like always. Only this time, she wasn't writing something new. She was decoding. Her fingers moved like she was remembering a language she hadn't used since childhood, one she'd only heard whispered from another room, late at night, before her mother would hush herself and smile like the truth was dangerous. Because it was. Because it still is. The camp was on alert. After the drone sighting, Elias doubled security. No internet access. Firewalls locked. Students told it was a lightning-related power adjustment. But Lena knew better. She always did. She asked no questions. Yet she changed the encryption on her terminal, rerouted her own data packets, and began writing a silent tracker script, one that Elias recognized immediately. Because it was his. But improved. Streamlined. Personalized in a way only Celia would know. That's when he knew. Lena hadn't just inherited her mother's genius. She'd inherited the fight. Later that night, Elias unlocked the secure server vault. Only 2 people had access to it, him and Celia. Inside was a terminal with no wireless access. No backups. No ports. It housed one thing, the original blueprint for the Vance framework, the system he and Celia had developed long before the world knew their name. It was supposed to change everything. A decentralized, privacy-first encryption core. Indestructible. Untraceable. Uncontrollable. They built it together. Then buried it. Because someone else wanted it. Someone willing to do anything to control it. Elias reopened the code. The old interface loaded slowly, like a memory pulling itself from dust. He scrolled to the core algorithm. And there it was. Celia's override key. Binary. A 512-digit chain, Perfect. Sharp. Untouched. Except. It wasn't. Line 238 had changed. Just one value. Just one flicker in a sea of zeros and ones. It had been edited 3 months ago. Remotely. By someone using Celia's master credentials. Elias blinked. Checked the logs. It came from a location in rural Montana. A static IP. Encrypted. Then rerouted a dozen times. But not well enough. He backtraced it manually, something he hadn't done in years. His hands moved like a memory. Like muscle and regret. Until finally, he reached the origin. A ghost town. Abandoned after a wildfire. No records. No utilities. But just 1 week ago, a satellite pinged activity near one old cabin. A solar-powered signal booster. Disguised as part of a weather station. And next to it? A drone pad. Recently used. Celia. She was alive. And she was sending signals to her old code. Why? Why now? Why Lena? That night, Elias called Lena to the observation dome. It was empty, just glass, stars, and silence. She sat down, cautiously. He handed her something. A photo. Old. Faded. 2 kids in a dorm room. Computers. Pizza boxes. A girl in a hoodie. A boy in wire-rimmed glasses. Celia and Elias. 20 years younger. Lena stared at it. Then looked at him. Eyes narrowing. Is that you? He nodded. And her? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. She knew. I think, she said slowly, you're my uncle. The words felt heavy in the air. Not accusatory. Not emotional. Just factual. Elias exhaled. I didn't know for sure. Not until recently. She looked away. I don't remember her face. Just pieces. A laugh. A smell. One song she used to hum. She paused. She told me never to trust the people who smiled too much. Elias winced. He used to smile like that. In interviews. On stages. Selling dreams with his sister's stolen fire. He leaned forward. Your mom was complicated. Brave. She saw what I didn't want to see. What did she see? That the code we made. The one we buried. It was too powerful. Then why build it? He hesitated. Then answered. Because we thought we could control it. Lena was quiet. Then asked. And now? He looked at her. Now, I know we were wrong. She nodded once. Then reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a flash drive. I found this in the tablet you gave me. Buried in the memory logs. Hidden behind a decoy app. Elias took it. Loaded it on the dome console. The screen blinked. Lines of code appeared. And then, a video feed. Grainy. Live. A woman. In shadow. Face barely visible. But the voice. Lena. If you're seeing this, it means you found him. Good. You're not safe. Not yet. But you're close. Celia. Alive. The message continued. Gideon knows about you. He's been watching. You need to leave the camp soon. There's a folder hidden in this drive, coordinates, IDs, escape routes. She looked off screen. Elias. If you're watching too. I hope you're finally ready. Because it's time. The video ended. Static. Silence. Then a single line appeared on the screen. Blood might bind us. But choice defines us. Lena turned to Elias. What does he want? Control, Elias whispered. Of everything. And me? Another pause. He didn't want to answer. But he did. Your mind. Your code. Your blood. You're the key to finishing what we started. And if I don't want to be? He looked her dead in the eyes. Then we burned it all down. Still here? If you think it's time, Elias and Lena, stop hiding and start fighting. And if you believe your past doesn't define you, type "I choose me" in the comments. Elias winced. He used to smile like that. In interviews. On stages. Selling dreams with his sister's stolen fire. He leaned forward. Your mom was complicated. Brave. She saw what I didn't want to see. What did she see? That the code we made. The one we buried. It was too powerful. Then why build it? He hesitated. Then answered. Because we thought we could control it. Lena was quiet. Then asked. And now? He looked at her. Now. I know we were wrong. She nodded once. Then reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a flash drive. I found this in the tablet you gave me. Buried in the memory logs. Hidden behind a decoy app. Elias took it. Loaded it on the dome console. The screen blinked. Lines of code appeared. And then, a video feed. Grainy. Live. A woman. In shadow. Face barely visible. But the voice. Lena. If you're seeing this, it means you found him. Good. You're not safe. Not yet. But you're close. Celia. Alive. The message continued. Gideon knows about you. He's been watching. You need to leave the camp soon. There's a folder hidden in this drive, coordinates, IDs, escape routes. She looked off screen. Elias. If you're watching too. I hope you're finally ready. Because it's time. The video ended. Static. Silence. Then a single line appeared on the screen. Blood might bind us. But choice defines us. Lena turned to Elias. What does he want? Control, Elias whispered. Of everything. And me? Another pause. He didn't want to answer. But he did. Your mind. Your code. Your blood. You're the key to finishing what we started. And if I don't want to be? He looked her dead in the eyes. Then we burn it all down. Still here? If you think it's time, Elias and Lena, stop hiding and start fighting. And if you believe your past doesn't define you, type "I choose me" in the comments. He had one response. A single word. Lockdown. The camp was isolated. Kids were told it was protocol due to local wildfires. Outdoor sessions were suspended. Group events brought indoors. Devices turned in for routine inspections. No one questioned it. They were used to security here. But behind the scenes? Elias was building a digital wall. A final firewall. One that would sever Camp Cypher from the outside world. Completely. A blackout grid. Meanwhile, Lena wasn't idle. She was watching too. Not screens, but people. She had learned the art from her mother. The art of observing. Noticing. Recognizing what didn't fit. And something wasn't right about one of the camp mentors. His name was Jared Kincaid. Tech-savvy. Charming. Soft-spoken. He'd passed every background check. No criminal record. No flagged connections. But Lena had a hunch. And so she did what she did best. She followed the code. It took her 2 hours. 2. She rerouted the camp's router logs, ran a packet sniffer across the staff subnet, and found it. A transmission. Encrypted. Tiny. Almost nothing. But steady. It sent out every hour. Same size. Same shape. She cracked it. Inside? GPS coordinates. Times. Photos. They were sending location data. Of Lena. She didn't go to Elias right away. Instead, she approached Jared herself. Alone. It was late. She found him by the lake, pretending to check a satellite sensor. She walked up. Quiet. Calm. Why are you sending them pictures of me? He turned. Caught off guard. What are you talking about? The photos. The data packets. You masked the transmission through the weather sensors. Clever. But not clever enough. He blinked. Then smiled. A slow, sick smile. Guess you were her daughter after all. Before Lena could move, a hand grabbed her from behind. A second man. Bigger. Silent. Security? No. Something else. But Lena didn't panic. Instead, she said one word. Now. And from the shadows, a drone dropped. Elias's voice crackled from the speaker. Let her go. Then the lights on the drone turned red. Armed. The two men froze. Elias stepped out from the woods. Two of his own guards behind him. Not camp staff. Not instructors. Real protection. Former intelligence. Quiet. Precise. Jared backed away, hands raised. The second man released Lena. Elias stepped between them. I should have known Gideon would send dogs before he showed his own face. Jared smirked. You always were sentimental. Elias didn't respond. Just nodded to his men. They restrained both of them. Silently. Efficiently. Later, in a private cell deep under the camp, Elias questioned them. Jared didn't break. But the other one did. Eventually. They were embedded 2 weeks ago. Waiting for Lena to unlock something. A failsafe. Gideon didn't want her dead, yet. He wanted to use her. To finish what Celia started. And then erase her. Elias felt sick. All over again. Because it had never stopped. Gideon's reach. His obsession. His war on truth. That night, Elias made a decision. One he'd avoided for years. He opened a private server, the one connected to the original Vance framework. He typed a command he had vowed never to use. //initiate trace_Gideon. It activated a hidden subroutine. One Celia had written. One that would locate Gideon's primary base. And expose his infrastructure. It would also paint a target on all of them. But it was time. Time to stop hiding. Time to confront the shadow. The trace pinged. Location, Greenland. Encrypted bunker. Satellite fed. Cold as hell. And active. Very active. That's when Elias turned to Lena. I can keep you safe. Here. Hidden. You don't have to do more. She looked up at him. Eyes calm. Steady. If I don't help, someone else's daughter might not be so lucky. Still with us? If you're ready for Elias and Lena to take the fight to the enemy, and if you believe in facing fear with truth, comment on not hiding. Have you ever found out something about your family that changed how you saw everything? A secret? A betrayal? A truth too heavy to carry? Drop in the comments if you've ever felt the weight of a secret that wasn't even yours. Some bloodlines come with inheritance. Others come with instructions. The Vance bloodline? It came with silence. And secrets. And something even more dangerous than either. Code. Not the kind that runs on machines. But the kind that runs through veins. Elias knew this the moment he ran the trace on Gideon's bunker. Not just where it led. But how. The signal that bounced back wasn't a location. It was a message. Encrypted. Deliberate. Mocking. It read. Hello, Elias. You're late. She's already rewriting the future. It wasn't addressed to Lena. It was aimed directly at him. Because this wasn't about data. It never was. It was personal. It was family. He stared at that screen for hours. Not moving. Not breathing. Just remembering. There was a time when Elias thought he and Celia could save the world. They were kids, just brilliant enough to think genius made them invincible. They built frameworks in basements. Encryption keys in notebooks. They believed in freedom. And they believed each other. But their appearance? They believed in control. Their father used to say it like gospel. There is no power without ownership, and no ownership without silence. Elias was 14 the first time he saw someone disappear after asking the wrong question. An intern. Young. Naive. She'd found a line of code in one of their early builds that linked back to an unauthorized surveillance project. She brought it to Celia. Celia brought it to Elias. Elias brought it to their father. The next week, the intern was relocated overseas. And 2 weeks after that, she was gone. No obituary. No email bounce back. Just gone. Celia never forgave him for telling their father. She said silence was the most expensive currency in their family. And the debt always came due. Now, standing in the camp cipher control room, Elias realized the debt was Lena. She was the last proof that truth survived. The last chance to end the silence. That night, Elias brought Lena to the vault. It wasn't on any map. It didn't exist in any blueprint. Hidden beneath the camp. A room wrapped in 6 layers of physical security and 2 layers of quantum encryption. Celia helped him build it before she disappeared. Just in case. Inside was a chair. A terminal. And 1 file. Marked, Code Blood. Lena walked slowly to the center of the room. She sat. Looked at the screen. Then at Elias. "What is this?" He paused. Then answered with something he hadn't said in years. "It's the truth." He activated the file. The room darkened. The screen flickered. Then Celia's voice came on. But it wasn't a message. It was a confession. "If you're hearing this, then you've reached the end of the lie. Our family doesn't fund innovation. We control suppression. Surveillance. War. Silence. They used our code to track activists. Journalists. Children. They told us it was for protection. But it was never about safety. It was about control." She paused. And then said it. What neither of them had ever wanted to say out loud. "Our blood built the cage. Now we have to break it." Elias stood quietly while Lena watched. Her face was unreadable. She didn't ask questions. She just listened. To every detail. Every betrayal. Every innocent person who'd been tracked, manipulated, or removed using code she now had the capacity to recreate. When the video ended, Lena finally spoke. "So we're the bad guys?" It wasn't a question. Elias felt something twist in his chest. "We were," he said. "But we don't have to be." Lena looked down. Then back up. "He won't stop, will he, Gideon?" "No. Even if we run?" "Especially if we run. So we fight. Not with anger. Not with tears. Just resolve. The kind only someone who's been hunted understands." Elias nodded. "But we do it our way. No more silence. No more blood." They began preparing that night. Lena modified the vault code, repurposed it into a tool. Not a weapon. Not a virus. A signal. Something that could send the truth to everyone. Unblockable. Untraceable. Undeniable. It would expose Gideon's web. His companies. His surveillance networks. His bribes. His threats. Everything. But it came with a cost. The moment the code went live, they would be exposed too. Lena would no longer be the hidden genius. She'd be the key. And every shadow her mother once fled would turn toward her. Elias gave her the out. One final chance. "You don't have to do this." But she just stared at the monitor. The cursor blinking. Waiting. "It's already done," she whispered. And clicked enter. The signal pulsed. Across satellites. Backdoors. Darknets. Private servers. It spread like a wildfire made of light. Exposing. Naming. Burning away the silence. Somewhere in Greenland, Gideon Albright stood in a room of flickering screens. His empire unraveling. His face unreadable. Then, a faint smile. "So, the girl has chosen." He turned to his assistant. "Send a message." "To who?" "Everyone. Let them know. He paused. Then finished. It's open season. Back at the camp, alarms rang. Sensors tripped. Elias rushed to the main control center. A drone swarm, heading straight for them. He grabbed Lena. Time to go. Where? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere we can disappear. Lena shook her head. No. Not this time. Lena. I don't want to run. I want to end this. Outside, the sky hummed with machines. Inside, the camp's lights flickered. And in the middle of it all? A girl. 12 years old. With a brain wired for war. And a heart determined not to become the monster her family had trained her to be. If you felt the twist in your gut, drop in the comments. Would you run? Or fight? And what does it mean to rewrite a legacy that was written in blood? Just imagine this. One button. One click. And the world never looks the same again. Would you press it? Even if it meant giving up your safety, your name, maybe even your life? Drop in the comments if you'd have the courage to upload the truth, no matter the cost. The world didn't shift with a scream. It moved with a whisper. A keystroke. One line of code. One click that unraveled a lie 10 years in the making. Lena sat still. Hands trembling, but steady enough to do what no one else had dared. The final sequence of the exposure program glowed on the screen in front of her. She'd written it in under an hour. Because she didn't need more time. The algorithm was already living in her mind, downloaded from the fragments her mother left behind, stitched together by the instincts she couldn't explain but always had. She was the code. And now, she was about to set it free. Elias stood beside her, silent. For once. Completely silent. No instructions. No warnings. No final pleas for caution. He knew it was Lena's choice now. Not his. Not Celia's. Not Gideon's. Just hers. The cursor blinked. And blinked again. That tiny pulse of light suddenly felt louder than the storm gathering outside. Then Lena whispered. It's not just an upload, is it? Elias looked down. No. It's an undoing. Of what? Of everything they built on lies. Outside the control room, Camp Cypher was going dark. Literally. The backup generators hummed. Emergency lights flickered on. Security feeds dropped one by one. Someone, was jamming the signal. They didn't want the upload to happen. They knew. And they were coming. 3 minutes, Lena said, typing rapidly. We've only got one channel left. Satellite uplink. No redundancy. Then we don't fail, Elias replied. His voice was quiet, but it had the weight of someone who had spent his whole life failing to say the right thing, until now. Lena's fingers danced across the keyboard. Every line of code fired like lightning through her. Encrypted data packages split into fragments, then refracted across the nodes of the proxy net. Every truth Celia had hidden. Every confession. Every buried document, every intercepted wire transfer, every erased whistleblower. It was all in the payload. Waiting. Begging to be seen. Then came the ping. Satellite link stable. Upload initiated. The screen turned blue. Progress bar, 1%. Outside, in the woods beyond the camp, boots hit the ground. Dark uniforms. No insignia. No hesitation. Trained. They moved as one, silent, fast. Through the trees. Toward the tower. Toward the room. Toward Lena. Inside, the progress bar crept. 6%. 12%. 19%. Suddenly, error. The uplink froze. Elias swore, rushed to the console. A flood of IP pings slammed the connection. A DDoS. Massive. Deliberate. Designed to kill the signal mid-transfer. Lena didn't flinch. She rerouted traffic through a backup route she hadn't even told Elias about. A line Celia once scribbled in a notebook flashed in her head. They can stop your signal. Unless you become the signal. And that's exactly what Lena did. She encrypted the payload inside herself. split it, injected fragments into the very live stream of her coding environment, turned her own keystrokes into packets. The screen updated. Resuming upload. 32%. 41%. 50%. Then, another breach. A second swarm. The jammers had reached the outer fence. Power grid hit. Full blackout. The control room flickered to red backup lights. Elias gritted his teeth. "We've got 2 minutes. Max." Lena didn't stop. She didn't even blink. She remembered her mother's voice again. "Truth isn't just dangerous, sweetheart. It's contagious." Progress bar, 66% 73%. Elias turned to the security feed. One last camera still worked. And through it, he saw him. Gideon Albright. Walking calmly through the chaos. Suit immaculate. Gloves on. Expression unreadable. Surrounded by shadows. He had come himself. Because he knew. This wasn't just any thread. This wasn't a file. It was family. And family, to Gideon, was never left unresolved. Upload, 84% 92%. Elias turned to Lena. "We don't have time. If they breach this room, they won't." She reached into her hoodie. Pulled out a second flash drive. "There's a mirror copy in here. But this one's wired with a conditional loop. If I don't reset the timer in 60 seconds, boom." Elias's eyes widened. "Lena, no. I'm not dying," she said calmly. "I'm just making sure they don't win." The final seconds hit. 96% 98%. Elias moved toward the door. They could hear boots on the stairs. Metal creaking. Lena whispered, "This is for her." "For Celia?" Lena nodded. Then, upload complete. The screen flashed white. Then black. Then, every device connected to the network, anywhere on Earth, received a notification. A file. No virus. No corruption. Just a title. Vance Code Disclosure Protocol, Truth for Public Review. Inside? The blueprint of a surveillance empire. Names. Dates. Recordings. Locations. Enough to dismantle decades of darkness. Elias closed his eyes. "It's done." But Lena was already looking ahead. "No," she said. "It's just beginning." The control room door burst open. Gideon stepped in. Alone. No gun. No threats. Just a look. Not anger. Not even surprise. Just disappointment. "You really did it," he said quietly. Elias stood between him and Lena. "Too late to undo it now." Gideon chuckled. "You think this breaks me?" "No," Lena said, stepping forward. "But it breaks your mask." And then, Elias triggered the EMP. The room went dark. Every piece of tech fried. Except the flash drive in Lena's pocket. She looked up through the darkness. The silence now wasn't frightening. It was freedom. They escaped through the backup tunnel. By the time government investigators arrived, Camp Cypher was already empty. But the truth? It had already gone global. Governments scrambled. News outlets exploded. Gideon Albright's name trended for 6 days straight, followed by the words indictment, treason, and underground empire. But Lena? She disappeared again. No selfies. No statements. Just code. She became the ghost her mother had once been. But this time, on her own terms. If you made it this far, drop in the comments. Because the truth is in the cloud now. And no one's taking it down. Let's talk about family for a second. Is it blood? Is it shared memories? Or is it the people who choose to stand by you when the world burns? The world was different now. Not louder. Not quieter. Just clearer. Like someone had pulled the curtain back and no one could pretend anymore. Governments scrambled to explain. Corporations pointed fingers. People demanded answers. But in the eye of that storm, far from the headlines and hearings, Lena sat in a small cabin in the mountains. Wrapped in a blanket 3 sizes too big. her fingers still twitching with the memory of code. The upload had gone global. Her name was everywhere. But she wasn't there to see it. She didn't want to be. Because this wasn't about fame. It was about freedom. Elias was quiet those days. Quieter than usual. He made tea in the mornings. Taught her how to split firewood without bruising her palms. He never asked if she was okay. Because he knew she wasn't. And he knew she wasn't ready to say it out loud. Until one night, under a sky so full of stars it almost felt fake. Lena finally asked the question that had been living in her chest since everything fell apart. Was she ever going to come back? Elias looked up. Moonlight cut across his face. She never planned to, he said softly. She thought staying away was the only way to keep you safe. So she died on purpose? She vanished on purpose. She died for the world. And left me to grow up like a ghost. Elias didn't speak. Because there wasn't anything that would make it okay. But then he said something that stuck. She knew you'd find your way back. To you? To yourself. Lena didn't cry. Not then. She was too tired. But she let her head rest on his shoulder. And for a while, the silence between them didn't feel like loss. It felt like healing. The world called her a whistleblower. A genius. A threat. But in that cabin? She was just Lena. Just a girl who liked lemon tea too hot and code that sang. And slowly, she began to live again. They built a tiny rig in the corner of the room. No internet. Just code. And memory. They played old music her mother used to listen to. They rebuilt pieces of the framework, not for war, not for surveillance, but for protection. For people. A secure platform that could never be sold. One that no one could own. Not even them. And then, the letters started arriving. Not from news agencies. Not from government watchdogs. From kids. Teens. Mothers. Fathers. Anonymous programmers. From everywhere. I saw what you did. They tried to hurt me. Now they can't. My sister disappeared. Your file brought her name back. I thought I was crazy. Now I know I'm not alone. Lena read every one. Didn't answer most. But she printed them. Folded them neatly. Stacked them in a box beside her cot. One day she whispered, "This is my family now." Elias turned to her. "They don't know you. They know the version of me that mattered." He didn't argue. Because he understood. More than anyone, he understood what it meant to rebuild identity from ashes. But just when they thought the worst was behind them. A knock. 3 short taps. Then 2. It was a pattern. One Celia used to teach them when they were kids playing spy. Elias froze. Lena rose slowly. They opened the door. And there she was. Celia. Alive. Tired. Older. But alive. Lena didn't move. Didn't cry. Just looked. Until finally she asked, "Why now?" Celia's voice cracked. "Because you were never supposed to carry this alone." They talked that night. Not about the past. Not about what could have been. But about what might still be. They didn't fix everything. But they built something new. A triangle of people who had broken the world in different ways, and were now quietly, piece by piece, trying to put it back together. The next morning, Lena pulled out her notebook. Not digital. Just paper. She began sketching something. A new system. Part human. Part machine. Part intuition. Built not to expose or control. But to connect. Elias looked over her shoulder. "What are you calling it?" Lena smiled faintly. "Kin." He raised an eyebrow. "Like family?" "Not the kind you're born into," she said. "The kind you build." Still here? Tell us in the comments if you've ever chosen your family, blood or not. And tell us, who's your kin? Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales TV. The final chapter is next. And it's time for the world to meet Lena, not as a victim. Not as a fugitive. But as the girl who rewrote what family means. Before we end this journey, Take a breath. Really. Inhale. Exhale. Let it sit with you. Because stories like this, they don't just entertain. They remind us, what we choose matters. Lena never became a celebrity. She didn't start a company. Didn't give interviews. Didn't trademark a logo. But she left something behind that outlived every article, every thread, every trending hashtag. She left a ripple. Not just in code. In people. In the quiet girl watching from her bedroom who always thought her voice didn't matter. In the coder halfway across the world who was told he'd never be good enough. In the parent whose child disappeared into the cracks of a system built to erase the inconvenient. Lena's legacy wasn't written in blood. It was written in choice. And silence was the first thing she chose to unlearn. She didn't want to be remembered as the billionaire's niece. Or the girl who exposed a digital empire. She wanted to be remembered for what she became after. A builder. A protector. A quiet reminder that sometimes the people we save end up saving us back. And maybe that's what family really is. Not a name. Not shared DNA. But a decision. To show up. To speak truth. To fight for each other, even when it's easier to run. So if you've been watching this whole time, if you felt that sting in your chest when Lena hit upload, if your heart broke a little when Celia knocked on that door, if you've ever wanted to rewrite the story you were handed, this story was for you. Tell us in the comments, what does legacy mean to you? Not the version written in history books, but the one you're writing right now, quietly, with every choice you make. And if you've ever kept a truth inside you too long, wondered if you'd ever be more than what they told you, felt like your real family was out there waiting for you to become brave. It's not just stories. It's a home for people who've lived in the margins. Who've felt the silence closing in. And who are finally ready to hit upload on their own truth. Tap that bell. Share your thoughts. And remember, you are not alone. This was Family by Code. And you? You're part of it now. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay brave, stay curious, and stay loud.